Good evening, all. We're delighted that you could join us this evening. Tonight we have Jessica Hayes with us, and Jessica has been one of our very reliable and efficient contributors. She performs webinars for us and writes blogs, and she's a certified active classroom facilitator. So it's always a pleasure to have Jessica with us. So, Jessica, I'll turn it over to you now and let you get us started.
Thanks, Pam. Hello, my name is Jessica Hayes, and like Pam said, I am a certified active classroom trainer. And welcome to my webinar on struggling students, what do you do? So let's go ahead and let's get started. During today's webinar, we will be discussing the essential question, what do we do with our students who are struggling with reading? We will also be answering the questions, are there any reading series that can help us teachers plan for those students? And is there any extra help that we can give our struggling readers through Active Classroom? So what can we do with our students who struggle with reading? In today's classroom, we have many different students with differentiating abilities. We have students with special needs, students who are learning English, as well as the unmotivated reader. And as teachers, we are expected to reach all of them. But how can we do that? It can be so overwhelming finding materials that can help all of our students. Fortunately, Active Classroom can alleviate some of the stress of having to address the different readers in our classroom. It contains different reading series to address those various needs. My favorites being Power Basics, Conquering Close Reading, and Short Text and History. First, I wanted to look at Power Basics, and Power Basics is a reading series designed to address students who are typically daunted by the length and complexities of traditional history textbooks. And this is one of the readings that I have used in my own classroom from Power Basics that you see on the screen before you. So this is one of my favorite titles to use with my students, and I love telling other teachers about this series. As I taught my world history or my U.S. history classes, I would sometimes follow up with a Power Basics reading to simplify the complex lessons. And I love that Power Basics would basically reiterate the same content, but with much more manageable and easy to understand content. If you have an English learner student or students with special needs in your classroom, this title is great for those students. First, it presents students with vocabulary words with definitions that students will find throughout the reading. Then it presents the material in a chunked reading format. In this way, it is not overwhelming for struggling students. At the end of each reading section, there are comprehension questions to check for understanding. Finally, there are activities that accompany each Power Basics to supplement student learning. This is a snippet from Conquering Close Reading. This reading title is actually a companion piece to Joy Hakum's Freedom, A History of Us. Therefore, it is used to supplement those readings. However, it definitely can be used as a standalone exercise to work on close reading skills or as an activity to supplement any U.S. history text. By teaching students to close read, students are enhancing their analytical skills as well as deepening their understanding of the content they are reading. With each Conquering Close Reading title that you choose, students will get a chunked U.S. history selection to work on those close reading skills. Each selection features different close reading strategies such as citing evidence, summarizing, and drawing inferences, just to name a few. What you are seeing here is the close reading strategies for the first reading passage about July 4th, 1776. Students read a chunk passage about the significance of that day. Then they use strategies like examining point of view and citing evidence to close read the passage. Then students work together to create a 5-word summary of the text. Yes, this series is great for students with special needs or EL students, but all students need close reading skills to be able to fully comprehend what they are reading. So using this title is a win across the board. But what if we have students that are just unmotivated and uninterested in what we are teaching? Short text in history is a great option for those students. It is a high-interest chunk text that captures the attention of those students. These selections are also paired with activities to help with reading comprehension. The times that I have used this particular title with my class, my students audibly responded that that was so fun, let's do something like that again. Each short text title has a different activity. Some may have a close reading strategy, some may have a directed reading portion that focuses student thinking, while others may have students examining and analyzing images. And those are just a few of the activities that you will see. To better illustrate this reading series, here is an example of what you will find with short text in U.S. history. This slide and the following few are snippets from a reading on World War I. This is the activity that my students actually yelled, "Let's do that again." There are 3 short passages of reading, and it's all about the same content, which is a soldier who was nicknamed Stubby. With each reading passage, more information about Stubby is added. At the end of each passage, there are the same questions for the students to answer. One is, who is Stubby? And the next is, what do you think will happen to Stubby? So in this first passage, we are given information about him. One, that he was an orphan and hungry and cold, and then a unit of soldiers took him in and gave him the nickname Stubby because he was so small. In this second passage, we get more information on Stubby. He proved to be an excellent sailor and he cared for 6 soldiers. Stubby and his unit was ordered to the front lines where his face was too small for a proper gas mask. So a fellow soldier made him one to fit. Again, students were then asked the same questions. Who is Stubby and what do you think will happen to him? Finally, students read about how when Stubby saw that one of his friends was injured, he jumped into a trench to save him, but he was hit. He was taken to a military hospital. He survived and went on to do heroic things during the war. It is finally revealed that Stubby really isn't a person. Students are asked, what is Stubby and what do you think will happen to him? It is finally revealed that Stubby is actually a decorated K-9 war hero of World War I. Through these readings, students were given comprehension checks and they had to take what they read to make predictions about the reading. Students felt like detectives trying to find evidence to answer the questions for each reading selection. Now, not every short text activity is like this one, but they are all engaging and interesting to even the most unmotivated reader. However, maybe you have students who need just a little extra help with reading. Maybe they just don't understand what a particular word means, or maybe they are just not strong readers. Active Classroom has functions for each reading activity to aid students in the reading process. Sometimes students may need something read to them, maybe a word, a snippet of a reading, or maybe even the whole passage. An Active Classroom can read this to them. So to find this function, students just click on the audio button in the top right corner. This will open a panel of various functions to aid student reading. The audio functions in this panel will read a specific selection or even a whole passage for a student. For Active Classroom to read a whole passage, students need to click the pointer icon, then click on the beginning of the passage. To read just a specific word or phrase, students just highlight the portion and they click the play button. It can also translate the passages into a different language, and this function is great for English language learners. To set the translation, students just need to click the gear icon. Once you click on the setting icon, you can decide the voice name and speed from the speech category. When you click on the translations category, students can decide which language they would like to translate the reading passages into. Maybe students just need one word translated into their native language from the reading passage. After they have configured those translating settings in the settings icon button, they can go back to their reading passage and highlight the word that they need translating. So once they highlight, they click on the world icon, which will give the English word as well as the word in the student's native language. Active Classroom can also play the word by clicking the play button beside the words. There is also a dictionary function. Well, actually, there's two dictionary functions. One is a traditional word and definition dictionary. Students just highlight the word that they need to defining, then click the open book, and it will give the students the definition to the word. There is also a picture dictionary. Students highlight the word that they need defining or just a clearer picture of, and then they click the picture icon. Again, each reading selection has these functions for students to utilize. But sometimes teachers, we need to track student reading growth. And teachers can do that. They can track student learning and growth by having students highlight and annotate their work. So what you are seeing now is an activity in student view. And this is what students would see from the work that you assign them in Active Classroom. So based on the instructions that you give them, what you're asking them to highlight and annotate, students can actually highlight passages and annotate their work. So for instance, if you want them to highlight, annotate the main idea of a passage, students just highlight what they believe to be the main idea and click the highlighter icon located in the top right corner. Then there are various highlights that students can choose from. So I chose the main idea highlighter. The students can also add an annotation about what they highlighted. Once students have saved their work, the annotation will show up in the right-hand margin. Now we are back in the teacher account viewing the student work. We can see what the students have highlighted and we can comment by clicking on the highlighted portion. Then we can guide our students' work by commenting back on their annotations. So as you can see, for an example, I just wrote good job, and so that will show up in the students on the students' work. All teachers need to work together to help improve student reading. This is how us history teachers can do our part in furthering that progress. Turning reading selections into a chunk text can help the struggling student not be overwhelmed by the information. Students can process the information in a much more manageable way. Also, utilizing close reading skills will sharpen analytical skills and help all students across the board. And choosing reading pieces that are high interest can benefit those students who dislike reading. With Active Classroom, English language learners and students with special needs can utilize functions that will give their reading an extra boost. Having passages and complex words read and defined for them can only strengthen the reading process. Finally, teachers can monitor and guide students' reading by commenting on student work and ensuring they are properly annotating what they read. Are there any questions?
Hey, Jessica. Wait a minute. I have a question, Jessica.
Okay.
So, back when you were talking about the Power Basics, one of the things you said kind of surprised me. So I wanted to hear like how you use that a little bit more. You said something in regards to sometimes after you've looked at something that was complex. I don't remember if you said complex text or complex ideas, but you were saying after looking sometimes at complex pieces, that then you take them to Power Basics to have a little bit more, I don't know, concrete understanding of that. I thought that was very interesting that you did it after. Tell me why you choose to do it after instead of maybe before they get into the complex.
So I had a mixed group of students. And so really I was trying to transmit information to them any way I could. I used multiple ways of transmitting information. Usually I would start out with a PowerPoint and we would talk about the content for the day that I wanted them to learn. But also I wanted them to read the information, and then sometimes I would show a video showing them the information. And so when we would go to Power Basics, which I love, that was always just a go-to, I was really surprised to find that it would basically show all the information that I would talk about, but it would show it in a much more simplified way. So I just like to kind of solidified what I talked about through the PowerPoint, through as they were reading. And so they were able to do comprehension checks as they were reading and supplemental activities as they were reading after they read, and it just kind of helped solidify their learning a little bit more. So just the way I set it up in my classroom, it just kind of naturally progressed in that way. We would do an opening activity, we would look at a PowerPoint, maybe take a few notes, and then they would read. That's about that selection, about whatever we were discussing that day.
Interesting. And I like that. That's sounds like a very manageable way to offer your students a variety of ways to get at what you're trying to teach for the day by using the different venues, whether it's images or videos or whatever. I like that. That was very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I also, I really enjoyed the passage you shared on Stubby. That was, I've used a number of the short text, and I always find them to be very interesting. And that one on Stubby, I think would certainly keep students' attention, whether they're middle schoolers or high schoolers, either one. I think the way it was written, it generated that curiosity that we want to generate in students. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing tonight and showing us some of the resources that you actually use with your students. I think that's so beneficial to have actual active classroom users doing some of these sessions like this of really what it is you utilize most in your classroom and how students respond to that.
Yeah, they did. They really did love the Stubby reading. And I had this group at the end of the day, and usually what I have found is the end of the day class, they are really unmotivated. And so it was a good surprise when they were like, yes, let's read something. Let's do that again. Let's read that again.
Oh, I think it's great. Anytime kids said, let's read again, I am totally impressed. That is fabulous.
Yes,
Well,
it
thank
was
you so
great.
much. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being with us tonight and for sharing with us the wonderful things you have in your classroom. Again, everyone, Jessica does write a number of blogs for us, so please do check out our blog. And I believe you were going to go to that last screen there when I interrupted you, Jessica.
Yes.
Right, and that's my information there. Should you need anything, please do reach out to us. And our blog, again, Jessica's written a number of those. She's also performed a number of webinars. We'd be glad for you to check those out as well. Thanks again, Jessica, and I will talk with you in the near future.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.